Hey everybody, welcome to the video. We are going short track racing once again this weekend for the Blu-Emu Maximum Pain Relief 400 at Martinsville Speedway, aka the Paperclip. And this race will take place on Saturday night, not Sunday. So for those of you that are watching on Sunday morning or afternoon, I apologize, but you did end up missing the race. But for those of you that are watching on Friday and Saturday, I'm very excited to break down this race for you all. I love short tracks, I love night races. So we're basically checking off all the boxes for what I look for an entertaining race. Also, the next gen cars have been pretty much undefeated and very fun racing to watch so far this year, so hopefully the trends will continue there. Plus, short tracks for me tend to do very well for DFS purposes. But as always, if you are new here, my name is Pennell. I break down the NASCAR DFS slate each and every single weekend on this channel that you're watching right now. I also go live on YouTube every Sunday morning, which I guess it'll be Saturday afternoon / evening this time around with the schedule change. You can also find me on the Awesome YouTube channel and on their website doing live shows and writing articles as well. And if you do end up enjoying today's free content, all I ask in return is if you can leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new content. And feel free to leave a comment down below agreeing or disagreeing with any of the takes that I said throughout today's video, or you can just tell me hi or I suck. Anything is permitted and any little bit does help in the YouTube algorithm. And once again, if we can get over 350 likes, that would be absolutely awesome. We have crushed that each and every single race this year, and since it's a Saturday race, we might not get there. So maybe I should make it 300 likes as the goal this time around. But if we could hit those, that'd be absolutely awesome. I do appreciate the continued support. And don't forget about our sponsor of the show, Prize Picks. They do make these videos possible, and you can use code CPEN to get a free instant deposit match bonus up to $100. There's no strings attached. Head over to prizepicks.com, or you can use the link down below. With that being said, I think that'll be it for the plug, so I will stop boring you to death. So let's get right into the preview of this week's race. And as previously mentioned, this is the Blu-Emu Maximum Pain Relief 400, quite the title of the race. But we are at Martinsville Speedway, aka the Paperclip, and I think you can get the idea why it's called the Paperclip, because it looks just like a paperclip. And it's a short flat track, once again, so similar to Richmond in that aspect, also somewhat similar to Phoenix in that aspect. Half mile in length, very, very small track. We have 400 laps. Once again, they did take away 100 from us, but it's still Martinsville, so we're still going to have fun, just not quite as many Dominator points as you would have here in the past. And 400 means nearly 300 Dominator points once again. Now, the pricing is not as soft as what last weekend, so I'm not sure you're going to be able to fit in 4 Dominators quite as easy, but you're going to want at least 2 per lineup because, yes, these place differential plays do look quite juicy, but at the end of the day, while they have high floors, their ceilings are not going to be nearly as high as some of the guys starting closer to the front. They can get up front and lead a ton of laps, which will rack up Dominator points quite quickly. And before I forget, got to mention some housekeeping things. Number one, if you want to join the DraftKings contest that I host each and every single week, we have now moved to a league, so it keeps track of the scores throughout the season, and you get the auto invite. So I think there's already like 70, 80 people that have joined, and normally we're at 0. So if you want to get into the contest, make sure you, whenever I invite you, you can leave your DQ username down below, or you can hit the pinned comment in this video below. I'll have the link there. It'll take you to my Twitter. You can join the contest, and you'll get automatically joined into the league, and you'll get an auto invite, and it just makes the process way, way easier than what I did in the past, where I manually invite you all. So join the league, join the contest. There's prizes. You get a shout on the channel. I usually throw the winners on the screen for you. And if you want to join the live stream on Saturday, I'm not 100% sure if we are doing the live stream. If there is demand for it, I will certainly do it. I just know Saturday's going to be very busy for sports. We have UFC. I hear it's a very good card. And then there's also baseball going on, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be NBA going on. So I'm not sure exactly when I want to do the NASCAR live stream. If you guys want me to do one, let me know in the comments. I'll be more than happy to do it, but just got to make sure there's a demand for it first. I'm not just sitting here in a live stream by myself. So moving on to the driver by driver breakdown, I should mention if you do want access to the spreadsheet that I'm showing you here on YouTube, it's just a preview. There's a lot more to it. We have DraftKings, FanDuel, Prize Picks projections with simulation scores, leverage scores, my own personal exposures, and a bunch of other stuff, including the Discord chat. And just hit the link down below. It tells you everything you get access to over on the Patreon. There's a couple hundred people over there. Great community, and I think you will love it. Also write articles if written content is your type of thing. But anyway, the pricing this weekend, I already kind of alluded to it earlier, but it's a lot stiffer than it was last week. It was a 400 lap race as well, but we had 2 guys above 10K. We now have 7 guys above 10K this week, and we have a couple in the 11K range. And this is correct pricing. This is how they should do it, but it's certainly going to be different from what we had last week, where you could play whoever you want, and you didn't really have to get down to the scrub range. And especially over on FanDuel, you can make a lineup where Kevin Harvick was your worst driver. That's exactly what I did. It was very chalky, but either site, you could play whoever you want. It's a little bit tougher this weekend, but it does make it, I guess, better from a strategy standpoint. So we'll start up top with Martin Truex Jr., $11,500 on DraftKings. He is starting P20, so right mid-pack. He had the best odds to win this race before practice. Now, these numbers are, I'm sure, going to change because, you know, when you have a poor qualifying and didn't really have that great of a practice, I'm sure the odds will change. I feel like Chase Elliott might be the favorite to win now. His practice was exceptional. He started in the poll, so if I had to guess where these odds are going to shift, that would be my assumption as of right now. And I just want to tell you that practice just ended and so did qualifying, so these numbers are very fresh in my head. So if I have to stumble a little bit and look over some stuff, that's the reason why. But these are my first reactions to the entire slate, so you're getting it raw here. But Martin Truex, starting in P20, that's definitely going to make him quite interesting. We know he's amazing at short tracks. He's amazing in night races. The only concern I have is that he was not strong in practice. I mean, P18 in the 5 lap, P12, P12, P11, P10. Yeah, starting P20 is amazing, but if he's going to finish around 8th to 10th place, I mean, it's a fine floor, but unless he's getting a ton of fast laps, I just don't really see him being the optimal lineup unless he somehow gets up front at his massive price point. And we have guys that are that have way easier paths to getting up front, like Chase Elliott starting on the pole. You have William Byron starting inside the top 5. Even Kevin Harvick starting inside the top 6, but I can't really compare the two because they're so different in price points. But I still like Truex. Truex is a really good play on paper. It's just I'm concerned of how much I'll actually end up having, because if he's not going to get up front, he's not going to pay off that price point. If it came down to it, I'd much rather play Chase Elliott over Truex, because I have a very strong feeling that Chase Elliott's going to lead a large chunk of laps in this race. And there's other good PD drivers like Denny Hamlin starting in P25. I wouldn't really would call Larson and Blaney place differential guys, but they're starting P8, P12, and I think they probably have better chances of leading laps in this race than Truex. So we'll see what happens. I hope I'm not making it sound like I don't like Truex. I'm just voicing my concerns for you. I can't make everything sound all rosy, but if we want to go with our rose-tinted glasses here, he's amazing at Martinsville. He's won 50% of the races here the past few seasons, at nearly 100 DraftKings points per race, best drive rating, best average running position. The name Martin is in his own name, if you guys like a good narrative there. Is not running the auto owner's paint scheme, which kind of sucks. If he was running that paint scheme, I'm probably all the way in, but it's not going to be the case. But, you know, he's a killer at short flat tracks, killer at night. I don't dislike him. I just have my concerns of where he'll have very high ownership at that starting spot of P20, where it could end up being a potential trap play, but I'm still going to play him. I'm just, in my head, I'm trying to work around how I'm going to build a cash game lineup, or how my tournament lineups will look like, and I'll be much heavier on Chase Elliott. Getting into Chase, might as well talk about him here. 11-2 over on DK. Starting on the poll, there honestly might be all the way in on Chase Elliott. If we sort this by the qualifying order, I'm not really sure who's going to give him trouble early on, because he's got a nice little cushion. If William Byron was starting P2 and Harvick was P3, that'd be a little bit different, but I think it's kind of interesting to look at it this way, where he has to beat Almirola, Custer, and Buescher at the beginning to lead laps, and laps are going to go by very quickly at Martinsville, so I'd say there's a decent chance we see Chase Elliott pretty much just lead the majority of the first stage, which is a good chunk of Dominator points to give you. And he was great in practice. I mean, first in the 5 lap, 5th in the 10, 4th in the 15, 1st in the 20, 1st in the 25, also 1st in the 30. So he's got a good long run car according to practice, and he's also extremely good at Martinsville, right up there with Martin Truex Jr. as being the top Dominator, and also averaging the most fast laps per race here, and is also very good at short flat tracks. So I have nothing bad to say about Chase Elliott. And I have not done this in a very long time, but there might be a chance that I go full 100% Chase Elliott on the slate, because I just have a hard time seeing him not dominate. And if he's going to lead the first stage and kind of hang around all day, I don't see how he's not optimal. If I had to pick between Martin Truex Jr. and Chase Elliott, I'm picking Chase Elliott. If you could fit them both, great, but Chase is a fantastic play and is a cash game staple for me. And I honestly might be all the way in tournaments, because he's going to be high owned. So you got to get leverage, and I don't think being underweight on Chase Elliott is going to be smart, so I'd rather be overweight. And at that point, it's like, if I want to be double the field, I might have to go all the way in. Dropping down to the 10K range, we have Ryan Blaney, $10,900. He's starting in 12th. I think he's a fantastic play. He has dominated both short flat tracks we've been at this year, albeit he did start on the pole each time, so he did have easy access to leading laps, but hard to imagine he's just not going to be fast once again. I will say the cars seem to have more speed the longer the run was. Now you got to keep in mind that there was fewer drivers that ran 20, 25, 30 lap runs, but his numbers were up there with Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, because he went from P9 in the 10, P10 in the 15, and then P3 in the 25 and P2 in the 30, which does give me some hope. He's also very, very good at Martinsville. Doesn't have any wins, but an average finish of 5.8, which is the best in the field, one of the best running positions, and 4 top 5s and a good chunk of laps led. So I could definitely get behind some Ryan Blaney. Don't think he's going to be super popular because Kyle Larson did have some very, very good practice times. As you can see, dark green across the board, while Ryan Blaney has some lighter shades of green. But yeah, Kyle Larson's certainly going to be a good play, but Ryan Blaney, very solid pivot potentially in tournaments if he's going to be lower owned. Obviously, I haven't ran any of my numbers yet, but I feel like we will see Larson with some higher ownership. And speaking of Larson, 10.6 over on DK. He's starting in P8, kind of already hinted at this. I assume his odds are going to be a little better after his people saw practice, but P1 in the 10, P3 in the 5, pretty much top 3 across the entire board here. So you have to imagine he's going to have a pretty fast car. This has not been the Kyle Larson of last year, and Martinsville is not really his best track. Did lead some laps here last year, I believe started on the pole, so kind of had easy access there. But if the speed's going to translate from practice, he should have a top 5, top 3 car. And if he's going to contend to dominate at a price point below 11K, I definitely want to have some interest in Kyle Larson. And he's looking like a very good play over on FanDuel, being only $11,000. Denny Hamlin, $10,300. He is starting in P25, and kind of similar to Martin Truex, where is this a potential trap play? I'm not gonna fade Denny Hamlin starting in P25. I just have my concerns of him getting up front. Like, I feel like maybe being heavier on a Byron starting in P5 would be a better choice than being overweight on Denny Hamlin starting in P25, because Byron has upside to lead laps, and Denny Hamlin, I feel like we're just kind of hoping for a top 5, top 10. I know he won last week, but he kind of lucked into that. Certainly did not have a top 3, top 5 type of car, in my opinion. The price point's nice, and we know he's good at Martinsville. Denny Hamlin's always been good at short, flat tracks, but he sucked in practice. P29 in the 5 lap, P24 in the 10, and P19 in the 15. So if he's going to run around like 10th place all day, yeah, safe floor starting in P25, but I want drivers that can dominate, and I'm just not sure that Denny Hamlin is going to be able to do that. Looks like his teammate Kyle Busch is going to be much faster in this race, and like if Hamlin's going to soak up a ton of ownership starting like 14 spots further back than Busch, I think Busch has way higher likelihood of being able to get a front dominate, which is what we're hunting for in tournaments. So I'd probably rather play Kyle Busch than I would Denny Hamlin in that aspect. It's also a little bit cheaper, but like I just said, pretty fast in practice. Was P6 in the 5, P3 in the 10, P2 in the 15, and just very strong across the board. Plus, we know Kyle Busch is good just about everywhere. Has had some solid runs in Martinsville. Not been really a dominator at Martinsville recently, but he did finish second here last year in the most recent race. And I mean, he's fine at short flat tracks. Obviously, I think Kyle Busch is a pretty solid tournament play. Joey Logano at $9,700 on DK. He's starting in P14. I think he's another very solid tournament play. I hate to call everyone tournament or cash plays yet because I have not ran ownership. I have not ran projections yet, so I don't really know where these guys are going to stack up yet. But I do know for a fact Joey Logano is always typically a good play at Martinsville. 5 top 10s the past 6 races here, one of the best average running positions. The Team Penske cars just tend to run very well at this track. And I mean, I wouldn't say Joey's been on fire this year or anything, but he did have top 10 speeds across the board in practice. Was also top 5 in the 25 and top 5 in the 30, but not many guys ran that many laps, so I had to put too much into it. But you have to imagine he's going to be contending for a top 5 here, and he's below 10K starting in P14, so you have some place differential upside. I could certainly look his way in tournaments. William Byron, no place differential upside, but he should have a fast car, and I love his Raptor car. It's like dark gray with the yellow hints of what the Raptor sponsor on there. It looks absolutely awesome. Only $9,500. He seems like he's going to be good just about everywhere. Last week, kind of got lucky with some strategy where he ended up front, but he was able to dominate. He's had a fast car this year. The Hendrick cars were just extremely fast in practice all the way around, and Byron was P1 in the 15 and P2 in the 10. And looking at his history at Martinsville, 3 top 5s the past few races here, 4 top 10s. Hasn't really been a dominator, but I could see that changing very, very soon, as soon as Saturday evening. So I do like Byron quite a bit in tournaments, and honestly, could be a cash game play at a kind of roster beside Chase Elliott if you just want a cheap dom. Like, we're getting Byron at a fantastic price point. There's a very strong chance he could find his way up front or just running inside the top 3 all day, picking up fast laps. Alex Bowman, another Hendrick car, $9,300. He is starting in 16th, and like I said, the Hendrick cars were very fast in practice, so you had to imagine they're going to have some upside here. He won the last race in Martinsville, was 5th in the 5 lap, 4th in the 10 lap, 5th in the 15 lap. Just some solid numbers all around for Alex Bowman. And as you can see, he does have that one win here last season as he kind of took out Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin called him a hack, but I do like Alex Bowman did finish top 10 in Richmond last week and should easily have a top 10, top 8 car. And while I don't think he's got a high chance of getting up front and dominating, I still want some exposure in tournaments just because it's a Hendrick car and he's the cheapest of the bunch. Christopher Bell, $9,100. He is starting in 7th and kind of similar to most of the JGR cars besides Kyle Busch and maybe kind of Martin Truex Jr. Just not a ton of speed, but we didn't get a ton of data from him, but it was P13 in the 15, P18 in the 10. Did have a solid run last week at Richmond. It was a very, very strong. Lit some laps, got a lot of fast laps, and overall one of the best cars in the entire field. We know Christopher Bell just historically super, super good at short flat tracks. He's a fine tournament play. He's definitely going to be the lowest owned, I think, of the 9K range, and plus you have a bunch of PD guys in the 8K range, so he should be very low owned. So if you're looking for that tournament pivot, he's certainly available to you, but projection-wise, he's probably not going to look amazing this weekend. Dropping down to the 8K range, we have Ross Chastain, $8,800, and this is what I'm talking about, where we have some PD guys at pretty good price points, and Ross Chastain starting P27. Hard to imagine he's not going to gain like close to 17 spots in this race, so I am perfectly fine with wanting to play Ross Chastain in any format, whether it be cash games or tournaments. Practice, I wouldn't say it was amazing. P13 in the 10, P18 in the 15, but I mean, if he's going to contend for a top 15, top 12, and you have to imagine he's going to be somewhat faster than that, as good as he's been so far this year, I mean, yeah, I got to like Ross Chastain now. It's an interesting conversation to have where, yeah, it looks great on paper, but again, you have a guy like Kevin Harvick starting P6 who's been very fast at the short flats this year, where if he gets up front and dominates, he's going to be a way better play than Ross Chastain, even if Ross Chastain is contending for a top 10, because I don't think Chastain's going to get up front and lead laps. And again, he can be a top 10 guy with fast laps, but if a guy like Kevin Harvick or Christopher Bell ended up getting up front, they could easily outpace Ross Chastain. So that's something to keep in mind this weekend at Martinsville, where guys in the back, yeah, great plays on paper and they're going to project well, but you got to be just a little bit careful because they probably aren't going to present quite the ceiling as some other guys that are maybe starting closer to the front. But as far as Chastain goes, you got to like him. I mean, as good as he's been this year, just pulling up the numbers, did finish second at Phoenix. 19th last week at Richmond, was fast early on. I'm not sure what happened, but he had some issues where it just went downhill quickly, but he's still averaging the most DraftKings points per race this season, has a win, 3 top 5s, and just some of the overall best numbers. So I have nothing against Ross Chastain. I'm just giving you guys scenarios where maybe if you want to be underweight, it would make some sense. Tyler Reddick, $8,600, kind of a similar boat to Ross Chastain, where he's been very fast this year, starting in 22nd. It's hard not to like them. They both have similar odds to in this race. These might go down because of the poor qualifying spots they have now, but shouldn't really change too much by the end of the race. But I do like both these guys quite a bit. I'll probably have around similar ownership on both of them. I could see Chastain being much higher owned than, maybe not much, but he will be higher owned than Tyler Reddick because you get 5 extra spots, and Chastain's just been so good this year. But Tyler Reddick has plenty of speed no matter what kind of track we're at. So do like both quite a bit. Both of them have similar plays, and both are fine in cash games. Kevin Harvick, $8,400, looks like a pretty good tournament play, although I will say practice was not too kind to him. P21 in the 10 lap, P17 in the 15, and P14 in the 20 lap. And I wouldn't say Martinsville's been an amazing track for him. He's fine where he's contending for top 10s. I mean, 3 top 10s the past 6 races here, but 0 laps led, yeah, decent amount of fast laps, 10.5. But at this price point, like typically we're paying 10 to 12K for Kevin Harvick, in seasons past, so I haven't really played him much here, but now $8,400, and as fast as he's been at the 2 short flats this year, fast at Phoenix, finished second last weekend at Richmond. I wouldn't say he was the second place car, but right place, right time at the end, almost actually won the race, but still was decent overall, got very strong the later on in the race. $8,400, I think he has a fine tournament play, and while he's not going to grade out projection-wise as good as Tyler Reddick and Ross Chastain, I do think it would be maybe a decent overweight spot in tournaments. Chase Briscoe, $8,200. He is starting in P19. Kind of had a rough race last weekend. I know early on he just got absolutely killed, and he was just kind of working his way out of it. But he finished P11 at the end of the day, which, he got there. It was fine. It's not what you were looking for where he started, but as bad as it was early on, he definitely rebounded quite nicely, and he obviously won the other short flat track race that we had at Phoenix earlier in the season, starting in P19. He's a fine play. I'm not sure I'm going to get there in cash games. I mean, if he's like a last piece fit kind of guy, great. But with a 400 lap race, I could see myself being maybe a little bit more top heavy. So I'm not sure if I'm going to get the Briscoe too often. Probably not going to in cash games, but he's a fine play overall. Kurt Busch, $8,000. He is starting in P18. Had an issue last week where he found himself, like 100 laps down at some point. Ended up coming back in, but he was fine in practice, though. P13 in the 5 lap, P10 in the 10, P7 in the 15. Like, overall, it wasn't terrible. Just didn't post the greatest qualifying lap, but at $8,000, I think he's a fine option. If you're looking at his numbers at Martinsville the past 6 races, not really a top 5 guy, just have 1 top 5, but 4 top 10s, average finish around 10th place. He's nothing more than a solid play on this slate. And, I mean, nothing against him, not really in love with him, but if you land on like 15% Kurt Busch, I wouldn't hate you for it. Brad Keselowski dipping down to the 7K range, $7,900. He's starting in 9th, and his odds are actually pretty decent for a guy that's this. I know it's kind of just, I feel like he could be in the 8K range, maybe if you swapped him with a Kurt Busch or Chase Briscoe, but I realize those two have been better. But this is a great track for Brad Keselowski, and the RFK cars kind of got hot last week. Brad Keselowski ran his way into the top 10 legitimately. Like he had some real speed, and green flag speed wise didn't look too bad. Practice wasn't amazing for Kes, but it looks like he's going to have a top 15 car. I just wish he was starting further back. That's the problem. I did have a lot of interest heading into the weekend, but for where he's starting now, it just kind of makes him a tougher play. But if you're looking at Martinsville, yeah, he's obviously very, very good here. He's kind of up there with like Truex, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin as being one of the best drivers here. Did finish P13 last week at Richmond, better than his P23 at Phoenix. The starting spots was make it rough because I wanted to like Brad Keselowski, but at this point, it just kind of makes him a little bit tougher to like it for where he's starting. Moving on to Austin Dillon, $7,700. He is starting in 23rd, and as I always say, he is always a super boring play, but he tends to just get the job done no matter what, whatever kind of track it is, even road courses now. He's getting the job done. Sucked in practice, though, outside of the top 20 in the 10 lap, and I wouldn't say Martinsville has been like a marquee track for him, but he's had 3 top 15s the past 6 races here. Finished 10th at Richmond, P21 at Phoenix. And if you're looking at the past 10 races at short flats for Austin Dillon, average finish around 14th place with 2 top 10s and 7 top 15s. If you just need a solid PD play, he's fine. I just wish he was a little bit cheaper. Eric Almirola, $7,500. He is starting P2. I feel like the last time he started P2 at Martinsville, he got a front and let some laps. I think that was during the COVID year where Blaney was on the pole. Almirola was second. I had 0 Almirola, like all in Blaney, and then Almirola beat Blaney at the beginning of the race and led some laps. Don't really see that happening here versus Chase Elliott. If you wanted to fade Almirola, he could be a good fade candidate. I'm having a hard time seeing him be optimal here. Like you have Cindric starting P13. I mean, I don't think there's too much of a difference. I know Almirola is good at short flat tracks. I usually tout him at these types of tracks, and maybe he hangs top 8 for the majority of the day, but I'm just not sure that's going to be enough to get the job done. He's a very fringe tournament play for me. I mean, you gotta fade some people, and Eric Almirola is probably gonna be a guy that I just don't get too much. Like, can you really see him holding P2 all day? Because I mean, at that point you have Byron, you have Kyle Larson, and then by the time you think of other drivers, we're talking about Almirola sitting in P12, which is just not gonna get the job done. Austin Cindric, $7,300, starting P13. He's interesting at a short flat track, but I'm not in love with it. I mean, just a fringe tournament play is. I know I talk a lot of good things about a lot of these drivers, but there's some guys that just don't really pop for me, and I feel like Austin Cindric's one of those guys, and I'm just not going to get too much. Looking at his 2 finishes at short flats this year, P20 at Richmond and P24 at Phoenix. Eric Jones, $7,100. He is starting in 24th. I could see him picking up some ownership just because of that. But if you look at the limited practice data we have for Jones, it wasn't pretty. P30 in the 5, P34 in the 10 lap. Looking at his history at Martinsville Speedway, we're talking 1 top 10, 2 top 15s, and some of these numbers do include JGR, so it's not like we're really drooling over Eric Jones here. Did finish P8 last year at Martinsville, so he's got that going for him, and he's starting P24, so it's not like he's starting inside the top 10 like he has some of these races, so the upside's there, and if he finishes like P13, P14, definitely not a bad day if you can mix in some fast laps. So Eric Jones is on my radar. I wouldn't call an amazing play, and I don't like what I saw in practice, but I'm not going to overreact too much to it. Chris Buescher, $7,000. I like his price on FanDuel. The problem is he's starting P4. He's typically always inside the top 15 at Martinsville, but starting in P4, I mean, he's one of those guys where you could probably feel pretty good about fading. I'd rather play Daniel Suarez starting in P30. at $6,800. I know Martinsville's not an amazing track for Daniel Suarez, but Team Trackhouse has been solid this year, and according to practice, he should have a top 20 car. And if you're looking at his finishes at the short flats this year, 16th at Richmond and 9th at Phoenix. I know Martinsville is kind of its own unique track, but it's still a short flat track, and I mean, Suarez is better than a P30 car. You have to imagine he's going to gain hopefully close to 10 spots here, and with the upside of 10 to 15, maybe more if he just happens to have a really strong run. AJ Allmendinger, $6,600, starting in P36, and I'm not playing him. I am completely fading Allmendinger. I know what you're probably thinking, why would I fade Allmendinger starting dead last at $6,600? Well, he has to do a pass-through penalty for failing tech 3 times, and this is not Auto Club. This is not Daytona. He's going to lose laps. He's going to lose at least 2, and I know Haley had the same thing going on last week at a short flat track, but Richmond's even bigger than Martinsville, and Haley got extremely lucky with a quick yellow, and even then, Haley was still not in the optimal lineup, and you know, Dinger's going to lose a couple laps, and guys get laps so quickly at Martinsville. I mean, there's just a strong chance that Dinger's just fighting his way back in the lead lap the entire race. So I'm going to be out on Dinger. If he's going to pick up ownership, if people aren't aware of the penalty, good for me. I hope he's I own, because I am just not going to play any Dinger. I feel like he's one of the biggest traps in the slate. If people are going to play him. But Wallace, $6,400. He is starting in 21st, and if people are looking at practice speeds, he might get quite a bit of ownership back here because he was fast. P2 in the 5 lap, P6 in the 10. I believe he was very fast in the 1 lap. I don't have it here because it just skews the data because I don't care about 1 laps, but he might have been first. I know he's very high up there, but very fast across the board here in practice, and Martinsville is actually one of his better tracks. If you're looking at his history, average finish outside the top 20, does have 2 top 15s and 4 top 20s, and you got to keep in mind, he's now in a theoretically better car. I know he hasn't been amazing in it, but he is in that Toyota now, and the number 23 car for 2311 Racing, and starting in P21, it's not quite the PD of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. or Daniel Suarez, but it seems like he has some speed, and I'll buy into it a little bit. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., $6,300, once again starting like around 25th to 30th place, and I don't want to do it. He has sucked so far. I mean, if you look at the 2 short flats, P28 in both races at Richmond and Phoenix, and he's starting P28. I just feel like he's going to be back there the entire time. Does have a couple top 15s here at Martinsville, but I mean, it's the way he's been racing this year, I just have very, very little hope for Ricky Stenhouse. Cole Custer, $6,100. You could throw him in the Chris Buescher range, where I just probably not going to play him. Like, yeah, practice wasn't bad compared to some of these other guys down here, but he's also starting P3, and he's just not going to hold that. Justin Haley, $5,900. He is starting in 17th. Probably another guy where I'm just not going to get to him. Did finish P17 at Phoenix, which was nice. He's cheap enough to where I'll take some stabs at the starting spot because he's not a bottom of the barrel type of driver. So if he can contend for a top 18, maybe a top 15 if it's a really good race. If you look at the Busch Clash, I mean, it's kind of a similar setup to like a little Martinsville, and Justin Haley was running very strong in that race. I hate to put anything into it, but if you just want a little data point to look at with the limited amount of data we have in the next-gen car, you could look at that to your benefit, but Haley's a tournament play only for me. Michael McDowell starting P15. I really can't see myself playing in McDowell. Practice sucked for him. He sucks at Martinsville. He sucks at short flats. I just can't see myself getting him any McDowell at all. I'd rather get the Harrison Burton and Ty Dillon starting P29, P34. Imagine these guys will be pretty high owned, especially Ty Dillon at that price point and that starting spot. But looking at practice, Harrison Burton was P22 in the 10 lap, and obviously we don't have any Martinsville Cup Series data here, but he did finish 18th at Richmond last week, and I mean, I'm telling you all about Burton, and you're going to need some scrubs this week. You might even need 2. I mean, I used a scrub Ty Dillon in my lineup last week in cash, and that was with soft pricing. So if you have to go double scrub this week, I think that's fine. We've done that in the past because you got to fit in Dominators, and they're a little bit more expensive this week. Ty Dillon, I mean, again, practice isn't going to be amazing, but he just tends to get decent finishes. Was running a lot better than his 24th place finish. Did get into, and I believe he was part of a caution. Didn't get like significant damage or anything, but he was running around the top 20 and then kind of went back to like P28, works his way back inside the top 25, finished 15th at Phoenix. If he offers us top 25 upside, $5,500 starting at 34th, I would take that. And according to practice, it looks like he could offer us some top 25 upside. And he does have a decent history at Martinsville considering the price point. Corey LaJoy, I always say, is the same place, Ty Dillon, just a little bit cheaper this week, and he starts a lot like 8 spots further up, so I don't want to call him the same play this weekend. I'd much rather play Ty Dillon, but LaJoy is certainly a pivot off of a chalky tie. Todd Gillen was a guy I wanted to play this week as a cheapie, but he's starting inside the top 10, and that's just not going to fly for me. And then as far as Blicky, Elliott, and McLeod and Ware goes, as I would say, probably just going to cross them out. But with that being said, I think that'll be it for the video. So I hope it was helpful, and if you did find it helpful, informational, informal, entertaining, whatever adjective fits there, make sure to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. I'll be here all season long breaking down NASCAR, so if you think you're gonna keep coming back each and every single week, I don't see why you wouldn't subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell so you get notified whenever I post a new video or go live on Saturday or Sundays. And leave a comment down below, agreeing, disagreeing, saying hi, tell me I suck, whatever you want to do. Join the DraftKings contest, join the Patreon if you want lots of extra content over there. I think that's just about it. If you want to go check out Prize Picks, you can use code CPENN to get an instant deposit match bonus. Follow me on Twitter, ChrisPennell16, CPENN16 over on IG. But I think that covers just about everything. So for those of you that will join the live stream if we have one, I will see you there. I wish you all the best of luck, and I cannot wait for a Martinsville night race.